Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode number 54 of Unmasked. I'm your host, Neil Getzlow. And this episode, this week, marks the first episode of year 2 of the podcast. And that is a miracle in itself. I still can't believe that I've had the patience and the strength to do this for a year, week in, week out. But that's a credit to the strength that God has given me, not my own strength. So I'm just so appreciative of everyone over the past year who's listened, who's come along on this journey with me. I appreciate all the faithful listeners out there. And if you are new here to this podcast, I encourage you to scroll through the podcast feed, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you might be listening. Scroll through the feed, catch up on the older episodes. And yes, we are in week 3 of doing the video side of the podcast as well. So if you're listening on your favorite podcast feed, make sure you check it out on YouTube. I'll put a link down in the show notes where you can watch the video component of this. And hey, if you like it, like the video, subscribe, do all that stuff you're supposed to do to YouTube channels. I'd appreciate it. You can also check out neilgetzlow.com where you can learn more about my journey and check out my book, which also coincidentally enough is called Unmasked: Conquering Sexual Sin and Walking in Victory. And also, before we get going here, I just want to thank all the many incredible guests that God has blessed me with over the past year. We've had a great lineup of interviews over the past 52 weeks, and we have some amazing guests coming up here to start year 2 of Unmasked in the weeks ahead. So, hey, let's jump into episode number 54 here. And this week marks the 3rd anniversary since God took a 2x4 to the side of my head in the form of a prostitute who blackmailed me after I had visited her in a hotel room while on a business trip in Chicago, and then exposed my secret life to my wife, Amy. And that set off a wild chain of events over the 6 weeks following that episode that ultimately led me to confess all my sins to Amy, confess my sins to God. And at that point, Jesus healed me and he saved me. And our life has been so different over the past 3 years. And so I think it's only appropriate that I bring back this week one of my favorite guests of all time ever on this show, and that's my wife, Amy. And I'm going to share this quote, this Bible verse before we get going. And it's from Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. And, I have thought about over the past week and look back at that time 3 years ago. And, I never would have guessed that this Bible verse that you're seeing on the screen or that you just heard me read, like how that has become the truth for me. Like I've never would have thought that would have been the case, even after this incident happened back on March 1st, 2020. I never would have thought that things would have changed so much where we're now this verse is everything for me, and the relationship I have with Amy is everything to me. And of course, it all starts with having a relationship with Christ. And both of us are just so blessed and excited to share this and have a chance to bring encouragement to other people. So through the magic of technology, welcome my wife, Amy. Hello, Amy.
Hi.
Thank you
I'm
for
all the way
coming on.
upstairs.
What's that?
I'm all the way upstairs.
You're not supposed to tell people that you're. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, here we are.
Yeah.
3 years later since that fateful night back in 2020. What do you remember about that night when you got that message from that person in Chicago?
I think I remember everything like it was yesterday.
Well, like, tell me, how does that make you feel? Like, what do you remember in if you think back to that moment in time, what do you think about? And I'll from my vantage point, so it started with me like 15 minutes before you, because at 9:30 at night, that's when this is a Sunday night, and I'm working in my office, and my phone starts blowing up, and it's this woman from Chicago texting me saying, "Hey, you've got 15 minutes to send us more money, or we're going to tell your wife." And like, I didn't believe him. Honestly, I thought, why would they call you? Like, because if they called you and like, well, then it's over. Like, I would never give them any money. So I just was, I don't know what I was thinking. I thought they'd get bored and just move on to some other target, because clearly this was not the first time they'd ever done anything like that. So that's what happened at
Well,
9:30, and then at 9:45, you come into the picture.
yeah. Well, I had been praying for God to like let me know. So I don't know, it just seems surreal in a way because I was just sitting in bed and I hear my phone go off and I look over and it says, uh, is this Amy? And then, like, right after that, they said, your husband was seen with a prostitute or something. And I was like, what? And the next thing I know, they sent a picture right after that. And so, I was just like, oh my gosh. Uh, I know my adrenaline was going. And so I don't know, I think I was just kind of all over the place because part of me was like, finally, like I got the answer, that I was looking for, I guess. Not that I wanted it to be that, but it just confirmed what I was thinking. And so yeah, I was just like, of course my first thought was to like run downstairs and confront you about it.
Well, you did.
Well, yeah, because I was, I didn't know what was going on obviously downstairs, but I was
Right.
like, I've got a picture, so you cannot tell me that, this isn't happening. So yeah, ran down there and I was like, "Are you cheating on me?" And you're like, "I, I'm being blackmailed."
Oh my.
And I was like, "I don't care." I was like, "You're cheating on me." And after that, I'm not really sure what happened. I remember I had like some kind of relief in a way, but also I was confused because you were like, "This is the first time, I've never done this before." And I was thinking, "There's no way." I mean, I've been thinking you've been doing something for years. I hadn't really kept track, but I was like, for a very long time, I was like, something's been going on. And now finally, I'm getting this message. Uh, but I just think I had so much stuff going through my mind that, I didn't have time to think everything through, and of course I wanted to ask you like a million questions, but uh
That would come over the next 6 weeks and 6 months probably. But hey, before we get to that point, like, yeah, I mean, I do that night. I mean, it is like, that is just tattooed in my brain. Like, and you know me, I don't have the greatest memory when it comes to details necessarily, but I
mm.
do remember this night. And um
Well, I do. I mean, we were outside. I was like, you need to let me know now. Like, I was asking you questions about it, and I was like, is this the only time you've ever done this? I was like, because you need to come clean now. I was like, because if you lied to me now, I was like, there's just no way I could ever trust anything you're saying. And you're like, I promise this is the only time.
I'll let you in on
And
a little secret. I was lying.
well, I
Not
knew
you,
that.
the audience. I'm talking to the, not to you. I'm talking to the audience. To
I
our
knew. I was
listeners.
just like, well, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this can't be right. I'm like, but I don't have any proof of anything else so far.
Yeah, and I
And then
do.
just your behavior from then on, just, I was like, he's not sorry for this. And there was nothing different, you know. It's like you're going on as usual, and then I asked you to talk to Kurt, and you did, and I could tell that, you're basically just doing it because I told you to.
Yeah, so
So,
Kurt is Pastor Kurt, who we had on the show a few weeks ago with his wife Brooke, and yeah, I really was just kind of trying to check the boxes, but I do strongly, remember you charging downstairs, um, to confront me and barging into my room, and yeah, I was not sorry. I was sorry for getting caught,
right.
but I wasn't sorry for what I was doing at the time, and so I was doing everything that I could to just I was trying to say whatever I could to get the conversation to end, because that's just
Yeah, but it just didn't make any sense to me. I was just like, well, I mean, if you're doing all this, and I know I'd ask you here and there in the past if you wanted to get a divorce. And you were like, no, I don't want a divorce. And I was just like, but I'm thinking to myself, but you're never here. So it did make sense.
yeah. Um, yeah, and then you're right, now that I think about it, right? We had this atomic bomb dropped in our laps, and then of course COVID happens right after that. Or it's in the process of starting, so we're about ready to get locked down and have
Well,
nowhere to escape.
I took my vacation not knowing that everything was going to get shut down. So I think I was off like a week before everything got shut down.
Yeah, and then
And
I remember this was around the Big 12 basketball tournament,
mhm.
and then I went down there like nothing was, like had done every year for the past, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, and pretended like nothing was wrong. I still, even though there was a good chunk of the mask that was taken off, that's where the God had hit me in the head, there was still plenty on there, and I was not at that moment, I still wasn't ready to let go.
Well, I thought it was funny too because you were buying like uh, antibacterial soap and Tylenol, like you were worried about getting COVID, but you're you're going out to watch basketball and stuff.
Yeah, I still was blind at the
Uh-huh.
time. Um, so like what did you think was gonna happen? So you get this call and you confront me, but I'm not being completely honest, as you could tell. Like, what did in your mind, what did you think was gonna be the outcome of this? Did you ever think that there was gonna be a way for our marriage to get healed?
Well, I think, just after finding out the first time, I think in my mind, I think I was just so determined, like I need to find out the rest of this because it doesn't make sense. So I wasn't really sure what the outcome was going to be. All I know is that I knew that you weren't you were lying. So, and I needed to find out what else was going on, but I didn't have any proof yet. So, I wasn't really, I guess, thinking about the outcome. I think I was just so focused on trying to find out like what was actually happening.
Did did you did you talk to anybody about this? I don't remember. Did you reach out to maybe your sister or a friend to talk about what was going on?
The only person that I told was Kathy at work. I've talked to you about Kathy, and she's a Christian, and I told her about finding out about the prostitute thing, and I told her to pray for you and to pray for our marriage and stuff. Um, but that was pretty much it. I was praying for you to be saved. I asked her to pray for that for you. Um, but no, I didn't tell any of my friends. I didn't tell anybody.
Hmm. So, well, like, how important was your relationship with God at that point? I mean, were you questioning things? Did it strengthen your faith? Like, how do you think that your relationship with God played into how you dealt with this situation? Because I got to imagine that a lot of people who were in a similar situation might not have handled it as gracefully as you did. And you did, like, I mean, I will say for the record, there were definitely moments of anger that you expressed
When?
during. I remember, like, when we were still, this is before I had gotten saved, but we're still sort of going, just, it was weird because we're almost like, it's like we were in some ways, and I don't know if you felt we're going with this or not. For me, it was, I just felt, again, I was just burying it down inside. Like, this happened, okay, but Amy's still here, so we're just moving on. Like, I know, trying not to address it, right? Just kind of kept on moving forward. But I,
Hmm.
I remember there'd be a few times where you'd make some comments um, about that expressed your displeasure in the situation, rightfully so.
Well, see, I felt like I really had to hold back a lot.
Yeah.
So I didn't say all the things that were on my mind.
Like what? Can you
I
think?
don't know. All I know is like I wanted to say probably some very not nice things to you.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, I
so
think
yeah.
that, I mean, that is the, like, that is the key to this whole story, right? Is that it was your forgiveness that ultimately unlocked the opportunity for our marriage to get saved.
Hmm.
And even more important than that, it gave me the ability to get saved and to have Jesus come into
Right.
my life. That was not, if you hadn't shown that grace to me, even though I did not deserve it, and you had every right to hate me and to be angry and all that stuff, but yeah, you showed me the grace, just how Christ would have wanted people to do. Um,
Well, that's what I had to keep telling myself um, when I'd want to unleash you.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, I think my relationship with God was good, but it was hard because basically I think I just kept myself isolated because, I didn't go and do the things with you anymore. And when I did, it was uncomfortable. So, uh it just sucked.
yeah, yeah. No, I can only imagine.
So, I just kept myself busy.
Yeah, and like, and people ask all the time, why do you share this ugliness with other people? And um, I don't think we have a choice, right? Because I think
Mhm.
I think we need to expose our scars to the world, but to show what God does, how God heals. And um, it doesn't mean that there's no pain involved, obviously, right? Like, there's still hurt and
Mm.
there's still pain, and the scars, like the scars aren't bloody anymore though. Like if you, maybe you bump your scar on the table or something, it's going to hurt. And there's going to be pain, but it doesn't open back up again. And,
Yeah.
and I just think that, being able to share our story is important because I think it helps other people. And you've experienced it. I know that you've had women reach out to you asking, that they having challenges in their marriages that, that they're walking through. And that the same for me, that I've had some men, that have approached me with struggles that they're going through. And so, I feel blessed that we have an opportunity to use, right. It's what, Genesis 50:20, I think what the enemy meant for evil, God is taken and is using for good. And, I it's and it's been a good 3 years.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah. It probably doesn't look like it on my face right now, but
No, it
but
doesn't.
yeah,
It looks
it
like
has.
your face, and I'm sorry for the people that are listening to the podcast on the audio format only. This is the face I'm looking at right now. Amy's face is the face I looked at for the first from March 2020 to about maybe June,
Oh, that's
July,
nice.
August. Your face
I
was
feel like you've aged me though. Like
what? Isn't that, well, yeah, it's like the scene out of the Ten Commandments. Doesn't Moses go up to the mountain and then he comes down? It's just like you now. You got this glow and you've been
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
But what advice would you have for other women who have, gone through, who are facing similar, challenges in their relationships?
I would say really all you can do is pray about it and ask people to pray for you. Um, because God does restore, obviously. So, and I mean, it seems like an impossible thing, but I mean, we're proof that it does happen. It's just drawing close to God and prayer. Prayer really works.
Yeah. 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 And I
And
want to,
I mean, it doesn't seem like it sometimes, but I mean, look how many years it took me.
well, yeah, it took you, you prayed for me to get saved for 8 years. And that's a long time to not see any results. And I mean, not just to see no results, but to see maybe like it's going backwards. I'm not getting any closer to God. In fact, I'm probably going farther away from God
Yeah.
over those 8 years. And I'm celebrating the sin that I'm living in more and more. And so, yeah,
Well, in
so
my mind too, I remember thinking, well, he probably doesn't y- like you didn't seem to me like I mean, obviously I didn't know what you're doing. Like I had the idea in my mind that that was going on, but I had no proof. And so to me, you're just like a regular guy. You didn't really do anything that a non-believer would probably think is something bad enough that you'd go to hell for. You know what I mean?
well, I mean, I didn't believe in hell necessarily. I didn't believe in heaven. I
Well,
didn't.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, if thinking sin wise, like you hadn't done anything in your mind that was that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
So,
I mean, it's like, and yeah, I truly was thinking like it seemed like a stereotype, but but it's true. You think, you know, I wasn't hurting anyone. This is my way of, this is my medication. This is my way of, not being anxious and all that stuff. I thought it was like, hey, everybody has something. I don't drink. Like, I don't drink. Well, I don't drink a lot, although I did. I don't have any. I don't have so many vices that um, that couldn't be
Well,
overcome.
I mean, yeah, it was like it just seemed like you're doing what everybody else does. You go to work, you pay your bills, you take care of your kids, and
Yeah,
you go out with your friends and you have a good time.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I was just like, but, obviously not knowing what else was going on in the background, but uh, I still, to me, I have a hard time like understanding how you could think cheating wasn't really cheating.
I
Or
don't know.
how you got that in your mind.
Well, that's to me like
I understand justifying sin, like, everybody does that, but I
I
still can't, like, wrap my head around how you believe that what you were doing wasn't wrong.
well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you an example, and this is, can't believe I'm going to share this, but this is literally a thought that crossed my mind way back in the mid '90s with Bill Clinton, because I said, "Hey, if the president of the United States can do these things and get away with it, like, then it must be okay." I know that seems so silly, but I literally had that thought, like, this is okay. Like, here's the, this is before the presidency, for you youngsters out there, before the presidency is turned into, well, I'm not gonna say anymore there,
Yeah.
but when people respected the office of the president a little bit more than they have over the past, 6 or 7 years.
Mhm.
Um, and again, yeah, I really thought he was setting the moral compass for me.
But if what you thought wasn't wrong, why did you hide it? If you thought it was fine, why did you
Well,
go through all the trouble of hiding it?
because even deep down, right, those the moral laws that God gives us, they are written on our heart. We know them.
Uh-huh.
We just don't want to admit that we know them. So even though I could justify it in my mind, there was still, even though I wasn't a believer in anything, there was still a guilt associated with it, because those codes are still written inside of you, whether you want to acknowledge them or not. And it is God's way of trying, sort of hitting that switch in you that says, "You sure about this?" Now, of course, I just chose to ignore it all the time and think it was just my inner voice, not maybe any sort of, you know, voice from a creator above. But as I've learned, you know, yeah, I mean, that's how I justified it. And that's why why I wouldn't come out and just tell you, because I knew deep down what I was doing was wrong.
Yeah.
Now, whose show is this? Who's interviewing who here? uh yeah. How long would you say it took for you to begin to trust me again?
Uh,
I mean,
I
yeah,
don't know. Uh, I think it helped that we're stuck together, couldn't go anywhere else,
yeah.
and I could see the changes in you. Um, and then, you told your family and your friends. I mean, it was kind of a gradual thing, you know?
Sure.
It's like, but I also was like, I don't want to be naive and, just fully trust him because, I mean, he's like
Well,
been a
I mean,
completely different
yeah.
person for all of these years and hid it. Like, even though I had a feeling, I just, uh, I didn't want to be gullible or anything,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I'm not sure if we weren't forced in the same place, to where we couldn't go anywhere, if I would have been able to get trust back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, and we would talk about this, a lot down the road, but that is the question, right? If there wasn't COVID and we weren't locked down together, would I still be in the same in the same place if I was able to go out to the bars and still meet up with my friends, and if there were still sports on TV to distract me and to take me to continue to take my interest away from God, if all that still was in play, hard to say, but
Mhm.
I feel like things would look a lot different.
Well, yeah, and I didn't want to be like paranoid and like just like worried about where you were at and what you were doing. I was
Well,
like,
and
I don't want to live that way.
yeah, and there were like, and I had to work at building the trust back. It was not handed to me easily at all. Those days of you going through my phone immediately after all this went down were so um, it was so uncomfortable for me because I had protected this thing for so long. I didn't want anybody to come near this.
Hmm.
Um,
I felt like I made things super easy for you. You
what do you
don't
mean?
think?
What?
I don't know. I just feel like I said, if I wasn't saved or something, I would have totally handled it differently.
Well, you would have.
So I feel like I don't know. I feel like I was pretty restrained in how I would have typically reacted.
Well, yeah, you were, but that didn't, and that's what and that's what I say about forgiveness. Like, the
Hmm.
forgiveness was needed, because without
Yeah.
that forgiveness, the bitterness would have tore us apart. But that forgiveness didn't take away any of the accountability or responsibility that I had to take and own up to for everything that I had done.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean,
But
I,
remember, we went and met up with Bucky, and I swear, like, you kept looking over in the direction of this other person because there wasn't anything else to look at.
no,
And well, but which made me mad because I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to. This isn't the way I want to. I don't want to think about this stuff. I don't want to be always wondering what are you looking at,
right,
uh, and
well,
seem paranoid.
right. Well,
But
but I mean,
you didn't handle it very well whenever.
well, was that I was this after I was saved?
I think so.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are
Because
times when
I don't think we had any drinks when we went there.
no, no, we didn't.
I think you were then.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was hard. It was hard not to be defensive at
I mean,
times.
it's
Like,
not like you don't get I mean, it's not like you I mean, you definitely start changing pretty quickly once you're saved, but it's not like you becomes
no,
you never become perfect, and it's not like everything completely changes overnight. But
no, and I had to learn how to be patient, like all the fruits of your salvation, like all that stuff, the joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. I'm missing one there. But like
you're
all those
missing
things.
self-control.
No, I'm in my list. uh those goodness, I think. Goodness, gentleness. Anyways, um yeah, I mean I had to sort of learn how to be a little less to be not to be defensive by all the questions that you had asked about what I was doing and by spending an considerable amount of time on my phone. Now, look, the great thing is I didn't have anything to hide on there. There was no new information from April 2020 beyond, but there was definitely old stories that were hidden in there in that phone, things that I tried to erase, not to hide anything, but just to try to keep the pain from resurfacing. And but
Yeah.
you had a good way of finding all those. So eventually we got through them all. And then,
Uh-huh.
now, now I leave my phone and honestly, I will say I purposely leave it in your presence without me around because I want you to know like you can continue to look as much as you want. There's
Mhm.
nothing that you're going to find.
Yeah.
So hopefully
I would
that
say
makes
that was probably one of the like, with situations like that, in my mind, I'm thinking, how dare you get mad or defensive or whatever that I
yeah.
want to look at your phone or or that I'm maybe questioning that you're checking somebody out. I mean, literally I just found out about all this. Um, but I didn't say everything that was on my mind, so
Right.
because I knew that wouldn't be a good thing to do.
Right.
So,
Well, um yeah, that's I mean, we could keep going on, and I know if you want to hear more of our journey, I know back in episodes 1 through 4 of Unmasked, we really we take deeper dives into the entire story and how we were able to rebuild our marriage. But I wanted to bring Amy back on. We're 3 years into this, and we are still going strong. Like our marriage is stronger now than it was yesterday, and it was stronger every day. It just continues to get stronger. Yeah, and the reason is because we are trusting God. We are following God's will, and he is just he's just I don't know how else I don't know what else to say, but he's given me a new heart with new desires, a new way to live, a new way to love, and it's changed everything. And I would just like if you are if you're a husband out there who is struggling with pornography and sexual sin, I just just think about what it's doing to your significant other, to your wife, and how it's just taking you away from God, and it's taking you away from loving your wife as fully as you are able to do. And it's I don't know. I feel like we're rambling now, but uh, I just want again, I want us to be. I want to share this journey with all of you because I want to bring hope and encouragement, and that hope and encouragement that is only found through what Christ can do. And yeah, Amy, what any other last words of encouragement for the world before we wrap up?
Oh my gosh. I'm not a
You have to have
wise
something.
person.
You're not a wise person. What are you talking about?
Ah, um, I would just, say draw close to God, and I mean, make him the center of your life, and you, I mean, that's the only way to stay in on the right path. Like, I mean, that's really all I can say. Even if you feel like God isn't hearing you, he does, and it's not happening when you want it to. God knows like the perfect time for things to happen. So, you just have to be patient. It's going to happen when God says it's going to happen. And that
And
might
I
be a
will,
while.
yeah, it could be. And I will also say, get yourself a good box of relationship building cards, and then
Oh,
just
yeah.
just we're coming in the spring. The weather's going to be nice. Go out to your back deck and start asking your wife questions to learn again why you fell in love with her to begin with. And wives do the same things with your husband. Ask each other questions, because that's what we spent that whole spring of 2020 out on our back deck asking these questions and rebuilding the trust and rebuilding our relationship, and it was awesome.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, so Amy, thank you for coming on this week. I know this is not your favorite topic to talk about, but it's
Well, I
encouraging
mean,
to
yeah,
others.
I don't mind talking about it. It's just, it's not always easy to talk about, I guess.
Yeah, well, of course, rightfully so. And I will say this. I know before I said we were going to wrap up, just one more thing. Like, it does for me sometimes when I'm retelling this journey. It just feels, some parts feel very real. Like, this part around March 1st feels very real, and the part 6 weeks later about getting saved feels very real. The stuff in between feels doesn't just doesn't feel like me. Like, the stories is more about the old Neil than it is about the new Neil. And
Well, you mean it doesn't feel real that the way you used to be? Is that what you mean?
yeah, it just feels like it's so foreign to me now. I
Yeah,
just,
I mean, yeah. I
you
think
know,
about my old life too, and
yeah,
it's just weird. I mean, it's weird how you change and you're uncomfortable with the things that you never even thought anything about. Like, you wouldn't I mean, you might think, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but now I'd be like, I can't believe I did that.
yeah,
Or yeah, it's just God really does change you.
he
Changes
does.
your thinking and in your
And
heart and stuff.
forgives, and he heals, and he rebuilds marriages. And you don't have to look any further than what he's done in our marriage. So, Amy, thank you for coming on. I'm going to say goodbye to you and send you back to the backstage area while I wrap up. So, farewell.
Bye.
Hey, look, thanks again to Amy for coming on this week. And this, like, the emotions are still real at times, and it is still like the journey. It's still to look back at what we did, the journey. It's still hard, right? But every day the steps becomes just a little bit easier, and our marriage gets stronger, bit by bit. And so, hopefully this conversation brought you some encouragement. Hopefully we didn't ramble too much for you, but we just wanted to kind of celebrate this 3-year anniversary of the first 2x4 coming in. and share it with all of you. So, hey, look, again, we've got some great guests coming up in the future. Next week, we're going to talk to Kyla Lanier. Kyla is the founder of Truckers Against Trafficking, and she's going to talk about the important work that she's doing, that this organization is doing to help train thousands of truckers as a front line of defense against human sex trafficking. So it's a great interview. We've got a few more guests lined up in March around this human trafficking issue. We're also going to talk a little bit about pornography addiction. So, hey, we've got some important conversations coming up in the month of March for Unmasked. So, hey, with that, I just want to say thank you again for coming on this journey with us. We truly appreciate it. And look, just remember, Jesus didn't come to hang out with the saints and the righteous of the world. He came to hang out with the sick and the sinners, just like you and just like me, not to revel in our sin, but to call us out of it. Have a great week, everybody.